So I think whatever is being said at the SNDK event is helping these names. So you're seeing a little bit of that right now.
Yeah.
All right, SpaceX 140, Matei. Something to watch maybe for an intraday setup. 140 was
Hmm.
resistance, so also the 200 moving average on the 10-minute chart, the 200 on 10 could be a nice support. But yeah, knife catch.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks interesting. Seeing some pretty decent volume stuff in here, actually.
Where? SpaceX?
In SpaceX, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. It's a big level. 140 is where we broke out of yesterday. So you want all those buyers want to probably support it.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. I am good to review S&P whenever Space Monkey.
Hmm.
It's
Actually, I might be entering along here, but happy to
okay.
talk.
On S&P 7800 backtest.
Y- Yeah, I want to see orb high 7800. I might take a roll 0 DTE 7810s.
Okay.
I do like the idea of maybe uh, previous all-time high test too, but I might just front run it because it's for the profits. So I'm just gonna enter. It's gonna be sized to 0. Uh, yeah, so I'm watching SPX here. I'm interested in trading a roll up, but I do want to see what it does on a potential break of 7800 and then 7793 back test SPX, which is the previous all-time high that we just broke out of earlier today, 7793.68. I would love a back test there, maybe dip below recover. Watching 7800, 7810s is what I'm watching. Let's roll up with some profits from earlier. It's like the first significant back test or check back. MU squeezing here. 50-day moving average at 963.07 right now. How about let's just we can chat about SPX, and if I enter it, I'll just call it out if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Quick little
That
call.
sounds good.
All right, let's kick it off.
Let me put my other headphone in. Okay. Do you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, yeah, just kick it off.
Cool. So S&P took some longs today. Both Space Monkey and I traded this yesterday and then again today. So I just want to take the opportunity to break it down because there's a number of different um, takeaways, I would say, from this trade that we could talk about that a lot of traders experience. And so, we'll get into some of that. I think the way I like to review things is taking a step back first and painting the picture and then getting into some of the details. So, for me, big picture is where I like to start. So the narrative, what was set up into this trade. So, the trade that we took was essentially this opening play above the 77.60 level, which is the high from this big move that we had, the big breakout on the fourth. That was a high from the fourth. That really the market's just been stuck in balance for 6 sessions, 5 or 6 sessions, unable to really break away from it. And so going into today, really going into yesterday, we attempted again to break through that after CPI, really low volume out there. So we're kind of anticipating the market finally pushing through, and that failed, which led to another attempt, second attempt after PPI today. So there's a lot of things to kind of talk about with that, but the narrative for this trade to me is taking a step back first before we get into some of it. And these calls, by the way, they pay really good, as you all can imagine and know that were with us on it, over 400%. And the narrative is for me about PPI, CPI coming this week after some really low volume. The narrative that we've been seeing is about the rate hikes in September, and from a short thesis that trying to be built, and it's kind of got squandered a bit with the prints and data that we saw this week with labor cooling and the inflation grinding a bit lower. That kind of kills any of that narrative that was trying to be built, and we're seeing the volume crush and volatility crush and the low volume really this week as a result of that. So to me, it's like, to put it simply, there's really just no fuel for sellers. So from after a breakout like this, buyers are just kind of waiting for the next leg, and that's really what we got. We got balance for the last several sessions. That's pretty frustrating to trade, no doubt. But once it resolves, it can lead to some really good opportunity. And as a trader, that's where we have to strike. Very similar thought process to how we resolved the month of July almost entirely. This whole month of July, we did pretty much nothing but trap, and then finally, once that was resolved itself, it resolved in a huge way with a multi-hundred point move in S&P. So the same psychological setups apply, just relative to the time. So, July, you have basically a full month of that, and it resolves in a multi-hundred point move. Over the last week, we've got, 5 or so sessions that just prices holding, defending and accepting higher, but not really going anywhere, kind of trapping both directions. And then that resolves higher today. So, big picture narrative, I think that's important to consider. The last thing I would say is memory. So going into the day, we saw memory names this week, start to pick up some strength. Some software names pick up some strength again, which is key, right? If you're looking for upside continuation and momentum, you want to see leading sectors also participate. We saw Nvidia yesterday show some strength, which was a reason we used to take a shot at a couple entries on longs, but then it just kind of fizzled out. Today it was a lot more coordinated. MU, SNDK, AMD, really, really strong. So that can add some fuel for upside. As I mentioned, sellers' thesis, at least right now, kind of got killed, right? So buyers are just looking for a reason. That's like the way I think about the big picture. Anything to add to that before we get into some of the entries and exits, Space Monkey?
No, not at all. I think that sums it all up. The only thing I would add to that would be part of the narrative for me going into today uh, was the sentiment, but maybe that's part of the psychology topic later. But for me, the sentiment, not only for myself, but I think for traders out there just looking at social and other places, it's kind of like just like choppy, very tricky reversal trading environment, and so it took its toll on many traders. And so coming into today, I had that in mind, feeling like that could be something to latch on to and stay very kind of observant of price action, and when we see that trade, we take it. But maybe that is something we can talk about a little bit further.
Yeah, and we can hit on it more than once too. I think that's good. But I would
But
agree. I think that plays a role in the bigger picture for sure.
mhm.
Um, it's almost like we've seen, a lack of follow through really consistently, and then everything resolves in a day or two. So if
Mhm.
you're not there, that can be really frustrating. If you're showing up to trade every day, and then there's only like a handful of good days, right, out of
Yeah.
weeks. So
Yeah, it's been a little bit like that over the last few years. Like, depending on how long you've been trading, like the velocity of moves and turns, it's just so much faster nowadays to trade than say 10, even like 12, 13 years ago. And so it's important to always kind of keep that kind of stuff in mind, that when that turn happens, you often don't have an opportunity to kind of question and validate, and you just have to kind of trust the process and go for it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But things not working is part of what we do sometimes, right? Nobody's 100%, and it's just managing that when it goes against you. Like, how do you manage that? But yeah, that's all I have to add really on that bit. But I think you did a good job covering.
yeah, and a couple other so like outside the narrative, there's the technicals, which we kind of touched on a little bit, but this with this balance area.
Mhm.
For me, the 60 spot has been key, and we've kind of popped above and fell below consecutive sessions in a row. So, in everything kind of does bleed into a psychological or mindset
Okay.
discussion, but so we can kind of just go through it
Okay.
as we see fit. But yeah, I think technically for me, one thing is just the more attempts, the stronger the trade becomes, right? So what becomes, I guess, tricky about that from a mindset perspective is, after taking a failed trade or a couple failed attempts, you know, uh, just being willing to put risk on the line. A similar setup is challenging mentally. Traders can get scarred easily. Um, especially if you're not risking properly, which kind of,
Mm.
in lieu of what you were just saying, you have to be able to regardless defend and manage risk, right? Like if you're not managing risk, then you're much less likely to take that second attempt
Okay.
that ends up working because you're too scarred, or maybe you lost too much money, more than you should have, so then you end up missing it, right? So it's just kind of like a reminder to always be, regardless of the environment, to be managing risk first, right? So
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, often the breakouts do come when people just throw in the towel because they're, defeated, both financially but also mentally, psychologically, all of that. And so if you can kind of think about that when the market is going through a tough time, and then you can set yourself up for it, I think, in a better way. So when things go against, you need to be able to manage that. And if you do it in the right way, you have more kind of shots to take, right? So you don't deplete the shots early on. You let it kind of build up, and even if you miss, like if you miss small, it's okay. But if you take one shot and you miss big, you're unable to try again. So I think that's important too.
yeah, absolutely. I think as far as the entries and all of that goes. Yesterday, so like just we're kind of painting this picture psychologically. Yesterday, we had this gamma landscape that was really similar. Which if you're following along, can look at the morning update. But I was trying to paste it in here, but didn't go. So basically, this today was the same as yesterday, with a small nuance that was the difference, I think, in why it ended up working out today. But yesterday, we were looking to get long, almost the same setup, um, through that 60 spot, and we just couldn't manage to get through 60. So, to your point, like for me, I tried, I think it was here off the open. As long as 50 held, I was expecting to see a push higher. That was small, it was a smaller trade. And then once I saw this reaction, I was willing to go B grade, and then that also failed. So, this was two attempts, and for me, I don't trade S&P quite as much as you, but um, I was fairly confident in the thesis, and it just didn't play out, right? Going into today, and I think you had fairly similar entries and exits. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we
Yep.
were kind of the same vein yesterday with the trade. Um, as far as today, which the gamma landscape was similar, but the key difference was it was a bit lighter. So we had
Right.
for our roadmap, we had an opportunity at a squeeze type of play where you have negative gamma and a supportive environment, similar to yesterday, but lighter. And so lighter just simply means there's more freedom to move. And so that paired with more attempts to break out of the 60 spot just means like every time we test that breakout spot and fail, to me, the odds just are going up on the time that it finally clears. So the fact that it had tested in this range several times leading up to yesterday, and then yesterday you have a catalyst and it still can't get through, then today you're breaking
Right.
through it again with another catalyst. That's also kind of cementing that narrative into September that like with the macro data coming out, right, kind of killing the bear thesis for now.
Hmm.
um I think yesterday when I think of like take a step back, it feels like maybe like with CPI wasn't like knowing PPI was on deck, it was like that setup was just kind of held back by that, whereas
Hmm.
today it ended up being able to play out because now from here until September, barring any major headlines, like there's really not a whole lot uh, that's changed, and the thesis is a little bit more cemented, I think, and that's what gave us a bit of fuel to just get out of this range.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yesterday's attempts for me, I think were it was more about very defined risk reward trading against. I think it was that 50 area. We knew that if we could break above 60, we could see that acceleration to 80, and then above 80, we could see all-time highs, which we got today. So it just didn't play out, but uh, I think your second entry was kind of like, okay, like 4 point stop. The potential upside is infinite, pretty much. But so I do like that, especially when there's a larger time frame, higher time frame kind of alignment, right? So the larger time frame alignment would be that SPX has been in a very tight bounce area. The trend is to the upside, and so it's getting close. Like we could kind of see it, we could feel it, we could see the gamma lining up, and so that's why we think took a shot and took another shot. I actually went out one DTE, and those would have paid today if I had held, but I didn't because I had to stop. And as we talked about a little earlier, it's like managing your downside when things are just a little too choppy and so on. And so that's why coming into today, just like I said, CPI out of the way, sentiment was pretty kind of heavy on people. PPI out of the way. The setup was still there, and it was just worth a shot. So today felt a little bit different. You mentioned gamma, but lighter today, so more freedom to move. I did not take that into account until you mentioned it. And for me, it was just a matter of like nice gap up and similar kind of setup to yesterday, but with less things in the way today. We got that break, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this breakout holds. If we start breaking below previous all-time high, that 77.93, 68. If we start breaking below that, uh, it could be a look above and fail, so kind of a failed breakout.
Mhm.
And if that happens, yeah, could get ugly to the downside. So just something to watch for.
Yeah, that thought crossed my mind as well. There's, you have these moments where you like seen this before. Um, it feels a little bit like that. So I think that's a good. I'm glad you called that out just now because we
Mhm.
should keep an eye on that. Sometimes the best upside trades do create the best downside trades. So
Mhm,
it's like
mhm.
everyone finally kind of gets in, and then it just kind of rips back the other way. We'd have to
Yeah, I mean,
see. What would you want to see for that to like to have a little bit more confidence in that? Because I know we've both seen it before, which is why you just mentioned it. You can kind of feel it, but what is there anything in the action that you would specifically want to see as the day develops?
today, you mean on this pullback? Yeah,
For yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a quick touch and maybe dip below and recover. Like the faster we move back above 7,800, the more bullish it'd be. You don't want to spend too much time below 7,800 or 7,793 previous all-time high. I think the longer you stay there, the harder it's going to get. So I think the most bullish would have been not seeing a back test. Now that we're getting it, you'd have to kind of observe and be very kind of cautious. But um, sometimes what happens is that you get that first breakout, and then you have players sidelined until you get this proper back test. And if it does hold, you'll see new buyers stepping in, and we get that turn. So um, yeah, but I think the quicker this back test is kind of over with, the quicker we get back above 7,800, the more bullish it is.
yeah, I would agree. I also think if we can close at or above 7,800 on the session, that would definitely be a good look on the daily. If we close down in the near that balance range again, then it becomes a bit more of a look above and fail
Hmm.
on the higher time frame. Um, Concept that I want to talk about that's easier to kind of say, harder to do, but it does help, I think, once you start to kind of embrace it. And we've partially talked about it's just a concept of thinking in bets and like thinking of your trades in the aggregate of a data set, meaning like our job is to assess risk and probabilities and then execute, right? So the in that process, as far as the data and numbers or series of trades that we take, we don't know the series of winners and losers. So there's times where like human behavior is constantly craving certainty. Like when we put money or risk on, we want to have certainty that we're going to make money. And um, we're always kind of fighting that just because of our human nature, right? So training the mind to think in bets and probabilities is really important because it allows you to more confidently cut losers, right? And
Hmm.
and then be available for the winners. I think that's really the name of the game, which what we do. Um, if you're not, if you get butt hurt, like we were saying, over a couple failed trades yesterday, or you just weren't thinking that way, then you're likely risking or losing too much, and then you missed a trade today, or the next opportunity to make up for it, you kind of create inconsistency, right? Whereas if you view each trade independently from the next, again, easier said than done, but it will allow you to survive through bouts of losers and then hit the winners, right? And so the way that helps me do that is to kind of like constantly think of a phrase like one good trade, then one good trade. I think it's Mike Bellafiore, SMB's kind of coined that motto. Is it's like our job is to take one good trade and then take one good trade and then take one good trade, right? So it's hard to not compile series of trades, especially if you've had few losers in a row. But it's definitely a lot easier to manage that if you're risking properly. Like if you're staying within your risk framework, then it's like you might have a winner, 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 loser, loser, winner, 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 or you might have like 15 winners in a row and then like one loser and then 20 winners and then 15 losers, right? Like we don't really actually know. A lot of that is subject to just market conditions and what's going on. And I think it can be helpful to accept that, right, mentally while you go into each day. Just knowing that, because a lot of trade, it's easy to take it personally, right? If you're like streaky and just like in a bout of losers, rather than recognizing that it could just be the market. And then it's like this vicious cycle, right? Where
Right.
if you are kind of like taking it personally and not thinking in bets, you're just adding more variability in your actions. Like you're more likely to keep making more mistakes. Whereas if you think more objectively, you're reducing that and you can actually kind of fight through maybe some of those bouts of losers a little bit more effectively.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think you do that really, really great. I think you're very good at that. So I think it's something to kind of to if you don't think in bets, I think it's something to focus on as a trader and just think about it as just another play, right? Play, bets, all the same, just a different way of saying it. Like, if you're in it, then you could get some money out of it. If you're not in it, then you can't. And it's all about managing. It's all about managing. So uh, yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add to that. I think like that's come naturally to me over the years. I think I only started thinking about it that way when you and I started working on the accelerator, like the educational material and stuff. I know that was one of the things you wanted to highlight. I know it's something that you highlight in the accelerator as well with the members there. Uh, but yeah, fantastic. I don't really have anything.
Yeah, I think like something that comes to mind is like because it's I don't even know exactly what my question is, but I think you at what point do you like blend how your performance is with risk versus like taking the next I think there's a good blend of like the like you do a really good job of kind of like based on what how your performance is, how you
Mhm.
scale back and scale up, right? And I think I, in the past, been a little bit more just almost ignore the performance and just take the next like hand that's dealt
Yeah,
regardless. And I do think that there is a blend of that that is ideal, right? Versus one an extreme or the other. Because I've
mhm,
noticed that like at the end of the day we are human, right? So it's like if I'm streaking
mhm.
downward and just like, okay, well, it's the next play, it's the next play. Like you do have to have systems for drawdown, right? To where you
Yes.
acknowledge that you might be thinking that you're taking just the next best trade, but in reality, like you're just not seeing the ball clearly and you need to slow down and you need to, press the brakes a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's such a good way of framing it. And I think I do that just inherently or naturally. It's just because of my personality. My personality, um, you know, uh, it forces me to think about how I am in the moment as I'm trading, because I know that if I'm doing really well, I can get a little more aggressive. I push on the gas. That is when I make most of the money. And so over the years, it's become, one of the variables in how I'm assessing the next trade. And, there's always that kind of off chance of tilting, which I do less of now, but I have in the past. And part of me kind of growing out of that was to create these, I guess, safeguards, right? Where, I have a few different things that I do if I sense that okay, things are getting a little out of hand. So I need to protect the bank more than just taking the next trade, right? Like sometimes that's not as important as managing yourself, and so uh, yeah, so I do think though it is important to acknowledge how you're doing in the moment. And there are days where just everything works, and those are the days you need to like do really well, because there are other days where you do less good or less well, and maybe poor, and you have to just kind of stay on hands a little bit more. Um, so yeah,
Yep, good points. Also, while we're talking,
yeah,
S&DK seems to be squeezing a bit.
yeah, it is.
Any headlines? I know they have what's going on today? They have the
Yeah,
investor day.
so yeah, so I actually posted it as you were talking. SanDisk CEO expects ADJ free cash flow margin of 50% FY 2028. Targets mid to high teens revenue growth, 80% non-GAAP gross margin. And so it's showing some, it's just positive numbers for the future. So that's coming out of the event that we kind of gave a heads up to. So I do have a 1522 resistance level here, but the way this one is moving, and this 1522 is right where plus one ATR is. And so I think this move was a pretty nice move into ATR. Above ATR, I think 1600 could come. 1660 is the 50-day moving average, which we've been trading below ever since we broke it. Um, what was it July 13? And so July 13, we broke 50-day. The day after, we attempted to gap up. We held above the 50-day, and then they actually sold it back down, and we made a new low. And so we're just trying to dig our way back up above the 50-day here, I feel. Um, but yeah, definitely some good numbers.
Yeah, we're seeing the R-vol build here on this push too, so some pretty big resistance, as you mentioned, but if it can clear that, the volume is starting to really pick up, so
Okay.
that would give confidence basically if it keeps going.
All right. SPX is moving lower here, below previous all-time high.
Yeah, and don't have a whole lot else to add on the S&P trade. I think we did a good job managing it. Calls went from like 3 to 20,
Yeah.
really good. Just kind of, a testament to just taking the next best trade. Not all the time, but sometimes like today, they will to pay for the losses, leading
Yeah.
into the attempts, right? So
Absolutely.
that
Yeah, I
was
mean, I think
good.
the one thing, maybe one concept we could talk about quickly here is like where you're having a good day, it will finance maybe riskier trades. So I trade SPX quite a lot, but I try to do it in a way which is as responsible. So for me, I've learned over the years, if it's best to trade SPX only if you have a really good setup or if you have profits, especially zero DTEs. And so, kind of raising cash for that play allows you to participate more risky. So, some people ask me, like, how can you trade zero DTE? Well, if you do it with profits, it's easier because all you lose would be profits, right? So, it's all about sizing correctly. It's all about like knowing when to not only enter and exit, but managing your day. So that's another instance where I do pay attention to how I'm doing on the day and then take that next shot. Like some days, like going into today, for example, the setup was so good that you had to take a shot at it as your first trade of the day. So yeah, that's just kind of one thing I would add to how we trade the SPX today because it's slightly different from how I trade often. Often you see that SPX is my maybe second or third trade of the day.
How do you manage risk like per? How do you think about how you're doing on the week, the month, the year in relation to the day? Like I know you treat each day as like a new day. Do you
Yeah,
like kind of dynamically adapt size based on that? Because the underlying point that you're making, I mean, I talk about it all the time as far as like the majority of profits usually come from the smallest basket of trades, but not everybody sees that, when it's not their account that's being traded in terms of size, right? Like you might take 5% of what you normally would on a higher volume of trades, and then when a more rare trade comes, you might size much more significantly. So like how
yeah.
do you how do you think about managing your like how you are risking going into each day? Is it based off how you're doing on do you just treat each day as a clean slate, or do you kind of like adjust based on how you're doing on the week or the month?
Yeah, I mean, I do adjust. I try to come in here every day with like a clean slate, but some days, like let's say you've had a few days where it's just been not good, you have to adjust because the most important is to manage your account, right? So if you've gone through 2, 3 days where it's been crap, or let's say you're having a less than good month, I do adjust accordingly. So maybe I trade smaller, right? So that's kind of like how I manage that. If I'm having a really good month, I might be a little more active, a little more aggressive, perhaps even. Uh, and was gonna say one more thing, but it's kind of dropped out of my mind here. I do think it's important for me, at least, to adjust, right? Because the most important thing is your bankroll. If you don't have a bankroll, if you blow up, you're not gonna participate. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you're having a great week, if things are just flowing, right? You're just doing everything right, everything is just moving. Like you have to be a little more aggressive. You have to take a few more shots. You have to, I guess, trust your observations a little bit more than, let's say, you're having a poor week, if that makes sense. Because when you're having a good week, like your observations are on point often. And so if you're seeing, like, as an example, you're seeing that there's something going on in memory, like something might happen here, and the technicals are lining up. On a good week, you have to take that shot if things line up the right way. And the opposite, right? If you're having a poor week and you see things like, okay, maybe I need a few more kind of validations, and then you go through the list, and if there's a trade there, there's a trade there. If not, you just move on.
Yeah. Wow. Fast squeeze on SNDK there.
Yeah.
Um, Really good points. One thing I'd add for those listening, this is something that it's actually an integral part of the dashboard in the
Hmm.
accelerator journal, but it's quantifying what you're saying. So like I would encourage, anyone
Okay.
listening to actually quantify some of those things. Just as an example, say you're 5%, you draw down 5% off of your most recent peak. Maybe it's just a small flag, like a yellow flag, hey, maybe size down 25%, or it's just a message to a team member or mentor or something, right? Just like a little check. And then, 10%, and I'm just giving hypotheticals here. Let's say you
Yeah.
pull back 10%, you size down the next week or next couple of days, 50% of your normal size, right? Like creating some sort of quantified system that you can, uh, you know, have like treat it like a business. And the reason I think that's important is because if a lot of times when you tilt or you try to just mentally do those things,
Mhm.
you're relying on being in a moment that's irrational. Whereas if you have something that's like, okay, that's the number I have, a risk for the day or the week or whatever, you're at least more likely going to honor it and respect it, because it's something that can be seen and known
Mhm.
rather than just like felt, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that doesn't guarantee you're going to listen to it, but it definitely helps to have a real system and treat it like a business.
Yeah. I mean, I think you do a good job with that bit. Um, like at this point where I am, it's like I do all of that, but I do it kind of inherently. I think you do a good job for the team to make it clear what they can do in order to do what they're supposed to do, right? So having a checklist, for example, is one of those strategies to make it a little more tangible, a little more real, right? So I think that's something that you do really well, and I'm sure you do that in the accelerator too with the guys there, girls. But yeah, I think it's important to, at least for me, it's important to adjust for myself just because of how I am, how I trade, how I've traded in the past. Like like I know when I'm doing a good job, and I also know when I'm not doing a good job. And so I've learned that I have to adjust accordingly. Um, SNDK 1555 here. It's up almost 15% here.
Yeah, that's squeezing.
Yeah, you're welcome, Christo, one of the members. Thanks for posting the SNDK news. That made my week. Yeah, that's a fantastic move if you caught it.
Did you say that the like underlying root of what you were just saying before, like kind of keeping
Mm.
yourself in check, is really about just being honest with yourself? Because
Yeah.
like what keeps you in line, I guess, with honoring those systems and frameworks, like it's I think that's what my opinion is. I think it would be what you would say, but
Hmm.
I don't know if you have any other thoughts, because it's easy to say, some of these things, right? Like when it comes down to it, what keeps you in check with these systems that you
Mhm.
follow?
It's all about being honest with yourself because in the end, you having a good day, bad week, bad year, if you're stuck in a rut for years, like it all comes down to you, right? I've always said that because nobody really cares about how you're doing.
Mhm.
Sometimes you might feel like people are there for you and supporting you. You're gonna do a good job, just keep at it. Like sometimes that gets frustrating to hear because it's a nice sentiment, but like, will it dig you out of a hole, right? And in the end, the only thing that will dig you out of a hole, the only thing that will allow you to grow as a trader, if you are a great trader already, the only thing that matters is you. And how do you keep yourself honest if you are lying to yourself, right? So yes, honesty, also being like truthful with yourself is important because if you keep lying to yourself, you're going to keep doing the same mistake over and over again. And doing that will not dig you out of whatever hole you are in or whatever progress that you're not seeing and expecting. So yeah, I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. And so if you are, I would suggest to think really deeply about um, that bit, like staying honest, staying true to uh, what you say, maybe, or what you're thinking, but not what you're doing. And only if you kind of solve that can you, I think, progress as a trader. Because there's nothing in the world as there's nothing out there that you can do in the world. Almost not, well, I'm sure there's something. It's just not something I can think of right now. There's nothing out there that I can think of right now that keeps you as honest as trading
Yeah.
and gets you as frustrated as trading because it's such a performance sport in a way. And for everybody that's done that in real life, like understand what I'm talking about. I know you do, Matei. It's like um, if it's like when you go to the gym and you're kind of like walking around, looking the part, but then when you're like lifting, you're not really lifting the way you're supposed to. Maybe you have bad form. Maybe your weights are too light for like how strong you actually are. And then you're like, man, I'm not getting bigger or I'm not getting faster. I'm not, getting, you know, not getting let's say you play basketball, like I can't get the ball in the hoop. If you play soccer, like why is my shot always going there? It's because you're not doing everything that you're supposed to at maximum effort, right? You're just kind of like go with it and you're lying to yourself. You're not being as honest as you need to be with yourself in those moments where you should in order to grow. And so what I would say is like just like it's in sports or whatever, like you have to take every moment to get better. And you have to stay true to yourself. So sports is all about nutrition. Let's say, like, are you eating right in order to give your body the best chance to get bigger, faster, or whatever? Like, are you actually just saying that, or are you actually doing it? So same with trading. Like, are you actually doing the studying? Are you actually not only the studying before the market opens, but also after? Are you studying your bad trades or are you only celebrating the good ones? Often the bad trades give you more information than the good ones. Like, how did you perform during choppy waters? Did you overtrade? Did you not? Next time it happens, what are the signs that you're going to look for in order to be able to assess this? It might be choppy. Um, what are you going to do? Okay, I'm not going to go grade B trades. I'm only going to go small to lotto size, maybe, in order to participate, stay fresh for when that breakout happens. And so things like that, I think, is important. It comes back to like being honest and truthful with yourself as a trader, but also human. Otherwise, and this might sound a little kind of harsh, but we're just, you're just another trader. Like we're all just another trader. many people want to do this. Very few are able to do this the right way or in a good way. And do you want to be that, or you want to be part of the small group of traders that do well? So, in order to do that second, you have to do the work, and so there's a lot that goes into it. And the last thing I would say about this whole thing is that it's about you guys, right? I think it's we can sit here and talk about this and that, why we did certain things, and I think if you're starting to trade like post COVID, you're so lucky because if you started trading, 10, 15 years ago, it was a lot harder to be a part of a group of people that are trying to do the same thing. It was a lot more, on your own kind of thing. And so what I would say is that you have to take responsibility. You have to uh, kind of do it almost yourself. Although you're not yourself because if you're part of TWI, like you have a bunch of people here helping and stuff like that. But in the end, it comes down to you and what you actually want. And so there are a few members that I'm thinking of. I'm not going to mention names. I've seen with my own eye, like grow rapidly, and by rapidly, just a few months, from I would say uh, interested novice traders with potential like talent, like with talent, to uh, you know some that I when they say something, I do listen. I look at the chart if they mention some setup, like because there's something there, and so it's all about. And I know you have something similar from Panda days, where you have people like asking the right questions, and for some, those questions might be like maybe too much or annoying or whatever. But for me, it's like, no, I'm going to answer that question because it's coming from a good place and it's going to help that person. So yeah, it comes down to you guys, and being honest with yourself is a big part of that.
Yeah, great points. Well, one thing you made me think of, and just to add, is especially in trading, the weight of those, uh, I guess, decisions to not be honest with yourself can be like quite literally career ending. Meaning, like, because it's just you pressing the buttons at the end of the day. There's nothing stop. Like in sports, you drop, a game winning pass. It's the end of that game. You go on to the next one, or you miss the free kick, or whatever it is. Like, yeah, it could be a really big moment, and that stinks. But it's very rarely going to be like a career ending thing. It might be career defining in sport, but in trading, you can risk as much or as little as you want. You can take your
Right.
stop or you cannot. You can blow your account if you want to. I mean, you might not want
Yeah.
to, but there's nothing getting in the way of it. There's no one else over your shoulder like pressing the buttons. Like someone you are the only one actually doing it. So
Mhm.
I think it's like very purely like you were saying before, like it's one of the only jobs, at least the only one I can think of, where it's like a pretty much a pure play on performance and where your head's at. So it does actually make you stronger mentally if you can, make it through the gauntlet. And it's definitely not for everybody though. At the same time, um, so just made me
Yeah.
think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not for everybody, but it is for many, right? It's important
Yeah,
to think about it because, even though hundreds of millions are trying to do this, like it's a small percentage is still a lot of people, and it could be you
yeah,
guys. So
yeah,
I know, like, I can only speak for myself, but I know the team here. We are doing this because we love what we do. We're all traders ourselves, and I personally enjoy seeing members do well. Just like it sucks when people are doing poorly, but I think, like, I know for you, I know you work a lot closer with some members in the accelerator, like one-on-ones and stuff like that, and you're really good at it. And so, yeah, it's trading is the best worst thing in the world. Some days, it's like
yeah,
we all know the Harold meme. I think I feel like that pretty much every day. Even when I'm doing well, I'm like, I feel I'm Harold. uh you know but I would not want to ever not do it, right? It's like one of those things.
Yeah, especially lately. I mean, like we were talking about before, it's like, you know, several sessions or even weeks of nothing great, like maybe decent stuff. And then you have like blips of like, okay, I remember why I do this now.
Hmm.
It's like, uh, yeah, it's been interesting action. I'm curious how we develop into the fall when volume picks up again. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really curious the type of action we get because the summer has been largely rotation. Like it's been just like one thing, one group is up one day, down the next, and it just keeps repeating with very little follow through, with the
Hmm.
exception of moments where there is some.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. What I would say is that SPX now is a bit of a failed breakout. So we're not really getting that support where we need to. We are back below the previous all-time high. We are very close, or we actually are below 77.80 here, which is that range that we've been in. And so it remains to be seen because when you get a bounce breakout, the back test of that bounce is what you want to see, but you want to see it to hold as well. But if we fall below 77.80 here, I'd be a lot less excited about upside here. But remains to be seen.
Yep.
So SNDK is actually backtesting plus one ATR here around 1500 on this pullback. It actually almost moved to 1600, which we called out earlier in the live stream. Just something interesting here. If we could hold 15, let's just say oh 09, 10, um, could be an interesting turn here if you're interested in taking this kind of squeezy move. Obviously, super risky here, but something to watch.
I mean, market's at an interesting spot too. Like you said, at 80. If it does defend 80, gonna want to
Yeah.
see a push back to 7,800 to remain constructive for upside.
I mean, I think this is an A plus area to go long, like risk reward trade, like we talked about against that 80,
Hmm.
75 maybe. It's just when looking at the gamma, I don't see much here. I don't know if you do, but I'm not seeing what I want to see. I do see it
Yeah,
lower. Okay.
I think it's got to hold here. I mean, if we hold here, it also just the way the price action is and the setup into today, wouldn't surprise me if a 7,800 pin happens. If we hold 80, if we fail 80, then yeah, it's kind of like opened up below for sure. We're at that path of least resistance right now and charm flip. So we hold here, risk reward play, like you said, good back to 7,800, but we might end up just pinning there if it defends.
Okay.
I would say 60 and 50 below, mostly 50 below would be support if we fail 80.
Hmm.
I just don't really want to trade the downside just yet. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
clean to me. I think if you were going to do that when we were sniffing it out off that 78.20 turn, would have been the way to do it.
Okay. So that was your back test of the SNDK plus one ATR. See if it holds.
See what flies look like.
See, we're getting that reaction on 77.80 here. Pretty much the first reaction we get. Um, for SNDK, if you were listening in, guys, we're up about 22 points here off of that plus one ATR. So we're getting a little bit of a death cat off that first pullback. That's why I like that, calling that out.
I'm gonna take a butterfly, actually.
Okay.
It's a little early in the session. Usually it's a little better to wait till like one, but I think this is gonna be my last trade for now, anyhow. And good conversation. I'm gonna take a little break here. I put that fly on, see if 80 holds. And yeah, a nice I don't know why it feels like Friday. I was gonna say nice cap to the week, but still got another day.
Yeah, yeah. Good stuff, man. That was fun. All right, guys. I'm taking a break as well. I'll be back in a bit. Right, I'm actually interested in maybe taking SNDK here, 1550s against ATO.